All right, there we go. Let's get our Facebook folks in here. We can get this ball rolling. What are we doing here? Let's turn down my definition a little bit. I'm still here. Just turning down the definition on the camera. And we're good. We're live. Welcome in. Welcome in. It is Wednesday morning, the 15th. We're halfway through January. And still a little bit of a letdown. Broncos season ends with a 30-7 beatdown in Buffalo. But hey, still a good season overall. And vibes are still high in Broncos country. I am Nick Kendell, joined by Scott Kennedy. This is Broncos for Breakfast. Scott, obviously it's draft season is here. We got 99 days until the NFL draft, and for the first time since 2014, maybe, every single question about the NFL draft doesn't have to circle around and eventually lead to but the quarterback position. So here we are. It's a good spot to be, and it's fun to have options and question the hypotheticals and possibilities.
I think everyone's moved on. It's it stung it stung for a day, but with the benefit of some time, you look back and say, man, that was a great season, and I'm really excited for next season. With all of the possibilities that are coming, all of the the hope that goes along with what you saw from your young players this year and how you can build on it with the hope of free agency and the NFL draft coming. So I think people have moved along pretty well from the last game.
Yeah. For me, I'm just bummed it wasn't a more competitive game, and it showed the gulf in class between the top of the AFC and where Denver's at. Like, I feel like Denver's probably the Chargers, the Broncos, the Dolphins, the Colts, the Bengals. We're closer to that murky middle than we are that upper tier right now. We're not one player away, but Denver, again, at the other hand, we picked them to win 6 games this year, Scott?
Yeah, we were both 6-11. And while you are, yes, right now you are closer to the Bengals and Dolphins than the Ravens and Bills. That's all right. You're expected to be down with, the Titans, is with 5 wins. So yes, we are at that tier right now with $90 million in dead money that's coming up, that a lot of that's coming off the books, missing a bunch of top 100 where we're top 100 draft picks. Those are coming back. It's like, yes, but now I get to come out swinging with both hands and not one tied behind my back. So I think, when you start looking at and you can listen to the announcers, and yes, they like to play up whoever they're watching at the time. But if you're looking at the team and you're looking against the competition, who would you rather be? I mean, the Denver Broncos are in a really good spot right now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, out of all the other playoff teams that were losers, the only one I think there's an argument you'd rather be, maybe the Packers, because they have their youngest roster in football, and maybe the Chargers, who hit on 2 superstar players, in my opinion, in the last draft and have a top 5 to 8 quarterback, despite how bad he looked in that game against the Texans. I think we were underselling how good that Texans defense is. They are definitely better than Broncos, and that's my biggest disappointment in that playoff game. Denver finishes the season number 1 in EPA per play defense, number 4 in DVOA defense. But I just felt like they're a little inflated. I don't know. They were front runners. I think they fattened up a little bit on bad quarterbacks and bad offenses this season. I think their strength of schedule defensively was like 22nd. So it was not, dead last in the league, but I think that Denver's defense is still a couple steps away from being elite. And now Broncos country, which understandably really wants to focus on the offensive weaponry. If you improve the offensive weaponry, that's obviously going to help the team. But I do expect defensive regression at the same time. And even still, I mean, Bo Nix would have had to play an MVP game to have been able to hold up against what the Bills did. And the Bills didn't even ask Josh Allen to go out there and play like an MVP. It was simply the defensive line, or the Bills' offensive line, beat the absolute tar out of your front 7. You couldn't do anything about it.
I just think the beauty of having a full slate of weapons in the offseason is I don't have to choose.
Yeah.
I don't have to decide, okay, do I just put my first round draft pick into one play, to the offensive side? No. I've got multiple draft picks. I can address multiple options, and I've got free agency.
Mm-hmm.
I could get 4 impact players
Yeah.
2 on each side of the ball with my available resources this offseason.
Yep.
I mean, that's the exciting part of it. I don't have to choose. I got draft picks and money. I can hit both of these. Yes, you're short at linebacker. Yes, you need another defensive lineman. Yes, you need another safety. Yes, you need more depth at cornerback. Yes, you need a wide receiver. Yes, you need a tight end and a running back. Well, I can do all those things. What I named 7 positions. I got 7 draft picks and free agency.
Yeah.
I can hit on all those things.
Yep.
You won't hit on all of them. They won't all become automatic upgrades, but I can bring in enough new bodies that I'll hit on 75% of them and increase my roster a little bit. And then you just hope for you don't get the regression from some of the things that you're counting on as, steady progress as you move up. As Garrett Bowles keep playing at the same level as he gets a year older, et cetera, et cetera.
Are you one of the healthiest teams in football next
Right.
season? It's overall big picture. Denver's in a
Sophomore
great
slump is a thing.
Yeah. That's the NFL, man. 2 steps forward, 3 back, 4 forward, 1 back. I mean, it's, as we always say, it's not linear, but it's not always consistent. But who always is consistent is Michael Ronquillo coming in here saying, "Good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Bo Broncos. Go Michael. Hope you're doing well out there in Tucson. Days are getting longer. I'm sure it's nice weather there this time of year. So appreciate you joining us this morning. And yeah, Denver, again, they really outdid expectations this season, but the expectations are going to change. Right now, Scott, I'm going to put your feet to the fire a little bit here. If you had to guess, this is way too early because, again, you mentioned it, free agency and draft can change perspective a lot. What would you set Denver's over-under at for next season right now?
10.5.
10.5. Okay, I was thinking 9.5.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be better. Well, is the defense going to finish number 1 EPA per play next season? I don't know. But I think right now, what were the Chiefs? 12.5? I mean, I think 9.5 is not too far off.
Look at, I think 11-6. Again, you can be, well, they'll be better next year. Okay, you can be better next year and have a similar record. That's, and I can be more prepared in the playoffs. Now my goal is to advance in the playoffs. 11-6, advance in the playoffs. That's the next step. Not necessarily, okay, you went 10-7, now I should be 12-5. Doesn't necessarily work like that. There's a ceiling in here.
Yeah.
If I go look, okay, the Bills were better this year. Okay, fine. But, their record, good teams' records are fairly consistent. The elite 2, 3, 4 losses. The good 5, 6, 7 losses.
Yeah.
And you're right now, you're in that good phrase. You're ascending good. I want to move up towards the elite. So yeah, I would say, my goal next year would be 11-6 and a playoff win.
And honestly, the biggest improvement this Broncos team is going to make next season isn't from anybody they're going to add in free agency or draft picks. It will be the hopeful ascendancy of Bo Nix. And now granted, should we expect that fully? I don't know. I think it's fair to be optimistic about it. You cheer in the system. We saw growth from him. The game starts to slow down a little bit from him. I'd also be curious to see if Sean Payton takes a little bit of the bumpers off of the offense somewhat. I mean, we even saw it in that Bills game. You're down 2-3 touchdowns and they go run, pass, punt, run, pass, punt. And it, right or wrong, it felt like Sean Payton was putting a little bit of blinders or bumpers on the offense and limiting the true drop back pass sets. I think there's been analytics out there that the Broncos had some of the highest rate of easy button options on the offense this season. So limiting true under center dropbacks, that's not a negative by any means, but I think that does lower the ceiling of the offense because at some point you do have to operate under center true dropback. It doesn't even have to necessarily be next season either for Bo Nix, but that's just an area where until that improves, you're going to be capped on offense, and the biggest part will be what Bo Nix's growth.
And part of that's weaponry. Your show last night, someone asked, why would we take a running back when we don't use them? I'm like, well, is it the chicken or the egg? This is a total circular argument. We don't have a decent running back, so we don't use them. So why would we get a good running back because we don't use them? Wait, what? No. If you had an explosive playmaker at the running back position, I promise you he's getting more than 10 touches a game. Promise you.
And also,
Alvin Kamara averaged like 80 catches a game, like 3 years in a row. 80.
A game.
A game? I mean, I'm sorry, a game. That's a lot.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that was a hell of an offense. People talk Drew Brees. Forget that. 80 catches a season. It's a 16-game season, too, on top of that. So what's that? Five touches a game out of the backfield? and then 10 carries, you're talking 15 carries. Yeah, that's
to
worth
that
it.
point, Scott, Javonte Williams, who is very much unfortunately, kind of just a guy at this point. He was number 2 on the team in targets this season, and he was the number 5 overall receptions running back this season. There are touches for the running back.
How hard will it be to upgrade that position?
You would have to actively try to not upgrade it.
Yeah.
I feel like, given the draft, like or you have just an unbelievable bad string of unfortunate injury or luck. But
there might be 3 new faces come in, 2 for sure. A veteran free agent, and then a premium draft pick. And when I say running back, premium draft pick is first, second, third round.
Yeah.
For a non-premium position, a day 2 pick is a premium pick, second, third round at the running back position. But but what Bo Nix said, the expectations are changing. We're not just satisfied making it. Expectations will change. I think going into this season out of 17 games, I think the Broncos were favorites in just 2, by the odds makers, just favorites in just 2 games, which meant they were underdogs in 15 of them. That's not going to be the case next year. They're going to be favorites in a lot. But if you still want to get your underdog fantasy, Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. Join over 5 million fans who are already playing on Underdog. With their pick'em game, you could win money by making entries with your favorite players, compete against other players by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. Turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog.
With their champs game, you could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, and much more. Every dog deserves a second chance, and with the Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose.
Download the Underdog app today and use our code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, download the Underdog app today and use our code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every touchdown. Just select higher or lower on Underdog.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. So moving forward, the main topic today, we got Miguel first, though. Good morning, fellas. I just really think the run game will open everything up and the defense can stay off the field. Go Broncos. Broncos need 2 more weapons for sure, and they probably need a back 7 playmaker, and they need to fortify the defensive line. Those are the goals this offseason. How they do each one, we'll see. But yeah, no, I think I've talked about it before. I've gotten pushback, but it's the biggest need, but it's one of the easiest ones to fix is the running back, and it should help everything. I mean, I know check down is a dirty word for a lot of people. They use it to degrade a player, but this is an offense that utilizes the check down a lot. And right now, the check down is almost like a catch and tackle immediately. Well, now you add a little bit of dynamism where a guy makes somebody miss there, and the check down can become an explosive option for the passing game. So you raise the ceiling so much, and that's just adding a pass catcher out of the backfield. Running game as well. I think a shout out to Nate Tice, I believe this was. I heard it on his Football 301 podcast yesterday. Long dog walk nights at 2 times playback speed on podcasts. But Denver's running game, I think, was 13th or 15th in rush success rate. So the running game itself as an overall operation was fine. But I believe they were like 8th in rushing yards before contact and 28th in rushing yards after contact. Rushing yards before contact, offensive line stat. Top 8, top 10 unit there. The rushing yards after contact, that's a running back stat, making a guy miss and then doing something after the catch. So Denver really struggled there this season, and that's an area where hopefully it can't be that hard to add. So I think running back is the biggest need for this team short term and could make a big difference over the duration of Bo Nix's rookie contract. The biggest difference.
Keith coming in on Facebook, he says, no matter the running back we use, we had little success. This points more to coaching and scheme versus talent and player, in my opinion. Williams, McLaughlin, Beatty, and Estime all bad? Question mark. Okay, 2 things on this. 1, first couple games, we saw the Denver Broncos come out and play in a phone booth. There was 0 respect for the passing game. There was 11 guys in the box. The Broncos didn't help the matter, especially against the Steelers, the game we were at. by everything being tight. The splits were tight. By the middle of the season, you saw wide splits, you saw more space. So the lack of vertical weapons impacts the running game. 1, 2, look at these guys you mentioned, Keith. Williams, McLaughlin, Beatty, and Estime. Injury, undrafted free agent, 5th round pick. We want to believe that every player we bring in is the next guy. He's going to be the one that defies the odds. You're talking about a guy coming off an injury and a 5th round pick and a couple undrafted free agents. That's not an investment in the running back room. It was with Javonte, but he had a devastating injury and isn't quite the same. Those other 3 guys are guys. Mm-hmm. Those are just guys. 5th round pick and a couple of undrafted free agents. No, that's not how you build a running back room. You might get lucky, but we are cash strapped and we're hoping to get lucky. Time to invest. Now you got money. Now you got draft picks. Now it's time to invest. Yes, you can make a big difference at running back with some investment.
And I do think that, as his point, all bad. I don't know about all bad, but all below average. And that's, guys. You watch the tape, and all these guys, they don't have players with multiple tools right now. That's a big issue, and that's okay. You can get by with that, but you want somebody who can do multiple things there. You can't just have niche guys every time because it's a tell. You don't have multiplicity out of your backfield there. So, yes, Williams was the only one they trust in pass protection, but he was a horrific runner this season. One of the advanced stats for running backs is rushing yards over expectation. Out of, let me see, I have the stat right here. Out of 47 qualifying backs, he was the 3rd worst in the entire NFL in rushing yards over expectation. So that's the displacement the line is getting down in distance and everything. The only running backs who were worse than him were Kareem Hunt and DeAndre Swift. So Williams was horrible as a rusher of the football, but they didn't trust anybody else as a pass catcher, as a pass protector, knowing the plays and everything. And that matters a lot for your getting out there. So it's the biggest need. It's the biggest need.
Look at the difference between James Cook, who was a 2nd round pick in that game. You watch one play and you watch him take and bounce something outside and outrun Riley Moss to the corner and get around the corner. Okay, McLaughlin might be able to do that, but he's a scat back. He's not 200 plus pounds doing that. Yep. Estime is a 4'6" and change guy who's a nice piece, but he's a 3rd back. Javonte, again, you just described Javonte, and Beatty is kind of okay at everything, but not great at anything. Good balance, but he's not overly big. He's not overly fast. He's just a nice 3rd guy. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was partially scheme. It was partially talent in the passing game, and it is partially personnel. I want to upgrade my personnel at wide receiver and at tight end and at running back. And I get to this offseason.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it for sure.
I do think
this one's Troy coming in, Nick, coming in orange with a super chat. He says, "Hey guys, Sean Payton's play calling in the second half of the season makes more sense knowing about Nix's back, more planned quarterback runs next year." That's a good point too.
Yeah, I think it's we kept asking where's the quarterback run when the running game was a little DOA because it is an option there. I think it wasn't such an issue after like the last 3 games of the season. We saw that, what was it, the pitch where the ball looked like it was tossed backwards, but because of relativity, it moved forward in that Kansas City game. Nix was moving at that one. I think he was okay there by the end, from what my understanding how those transverse process fractures work. They're 2 to 3 weeks. So I think that you can have that quarterback rush in your back pocket. But I'm hoping it's something that Denver's rushing game from the running backs is so improved and that Nix improves as a within structure pocket quarterback that it's something that break glass in case of emergency, kind of like what Ohio State's doing this year with Will Howard. He was a really big option quarterback for Kansas State. And at Ohio State, you think, oh, they'll do that all the time. Well, really, it's a 4th and 2 look. It's like once or twice a game just to have that in your back pocket. I don't think it should be a staple of the offense as far as the designed quarterback runs for Bo Nix. It's nice to have. And again, like in the playoffs and a winner take all, you just leave everything on the field, that kind of thing. But I don't think Nix he's a good athlete, but he's not like Cam Newton out there, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, where it's such a plus that you have to implement it in your offense.
No, but
It's
you
good.
show it enough to slow down the edge rushers.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
really all you need.
But you can do
If
that in
you could,
structure too, of like the waggles or rollouts or, even some RPOs or zone reads. I mean, it's
if I can get
yeah.
a player to account for me as the quarterback in the running game, I have an advantage. So you need to show it enough, even one a game, or you save it like you said, Nick. It's 3rd and 5, and I've got an RPO. I pull it out when I need it, but it's there. But if you can slow down the edge rushers, even a half a step is 5 yards on the of separation on the back end of things.
Yep. So thank you so much, Troy. 1999 coming in. We also got David coming in saying, how much cap space do we have, Nick or Scott? I think Denver's hovering around 54.
It's 54.7 right now, which is 13th. And that's really when you start looking at it, because there will be so much manipulation before free agency with restructures, with waivings, with that type of stuff. It's really better to just say, where am I relative to everybody else? Because they can clear up plenty more money. And it's at 55 million right now. And there's options to go and get some more money. So you're upper half, which makes you competitive against 20 other teams that I can outbid for players in there. So you're in the upper third right now of available money, which at 55 million, according to Spot Rack. Rob coming in. Good to see you, Rob. He says, good morning, gents. The best MHH team. You flatter us. And I'm insecure, so flattery works. Glad to catch you live, and we're glad you're here. Assuming all available at 20, who do you take? Genty, Warren, Starks, or Stewart? So let me see if I've got this right. Running back Ashton Genty, tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State, safety Malachi Starks out of University of Georgia, or defensive end 6'6", 285-pounder out of Texas A&M, Shamar Stewart?
I probably lean Genty here. I think he's the most special of these ones. This is a good problem to have with all these guys. We're 99 days out, so don't hold me to this come April. But right now, I probably lean Genty. Starks is a very good player. When I watch him, I see a very, very good player. I don't know if I would truly categorize him with Kyle Hamilton, Derwin James, Minkah Fitzpatrick caliber. So maybe I will come April again. But as this stands, I lean Genty, and I know it's a running back, but at 20 overall, without having to trade up, you get the best back in the class, the most well-rounded back in the class. And with how good he was rushing the football last season, I think his ability as a pass catcher wasn't even fully utilized. And my understanding is he's actually a pretty darn good route runner and receiver out of the backfield. It's just he was so good as a runner that they didn't really have to utilize it. So Genty's the one who stands out for me. If he falls past 12 or wherever the 49ers are picking as well, I think there's a good chance he is in play for Denver, even if it's a slight trade up, which I don't love considering how deep it is and the value of the running back position. But man, out of all the players in this class, Genty makes the biggest day one impact and change for them. Now the shelf life is short, but I'm also operating. You have a 4-year window right now with the cost control of Bo Nix. That lines up pretty well with Ashton Genty and a running back expenditure.
Nick, I told you this story when I first got into recruiting back in the 90s and was calling guys up. Division I running backs at the high school level put up pinball numbers. Mm-hmm. And, I asked him, I said, hey, so this kid in Mississippi, hell, it may have been like Jarius Norwood. Kid in Mississippi. I said, what were your stats this year? He's like, oh, I had like 120 carries for 2,800 yards and 40 touchdowns. I'm like, how about catches? He's like, yeah, I caught 3 passes for 40 yards. And I was like, what? And, my first response is like, well, why didn't you catch more passes? I'm like, well, Jesus, Scott, he's averaging 25 yards a carry. Why would I throw the ball? Just turn around and hand it to him.
Exactly.
So Senior Bowl, that type of stuff, combine and stuff, the off-season work is will be really, really good for Ashton Genty to show that he can do more pro-style things, and we'll see him. Real quick on this, Rob, and then we'll get you. I see a couple more supers and stars coming in. The Athletics, Dane Brugler did a 2-round mock, and looking at these guys, he has it goes Malachi Starks goes number 9 to the Saints. And then Tyler Warren goes number 14 to Indianapolis Colts. Shamar Stewart, DL, goes number 15 to the Falcons. And then number 20, Denver Broncos, Ashton Genty, running back, Boise State. So according to Brugler, won't be a choice between those 4. There will be only one, and it might be your top choice anyway. Kind of how the quarterback position worked out this last spring.
Yeah. We'll see how it plays out. He says, should Genty fall this far? Of course not, but if Dallas decides to pass, there aren't many obvious landing spots for him in the top 18. From Boise State Broncos, Denver Broncos, Genty would add another level to Sean Payton's offense and continue to help Bo Nix ascend to one of the league's brightest young quarterbacks. I mean, I think the Dolphins are interesting. The Cowboys are interesting. The 49ers are interesting. I think that potentially Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers could trade up for Genty, considering how much they want to run the football. And I think the Commanders would have been an incredible fit for him as well. But now that they've won a playoff game, I think it's going to be harder for them because they're going to be picking, 5-6 picks later than the Broncos. But we'll see. Patrick comes in, our guy, says, got to run. Have a great day. I'll catch up later. Shout out to you, Patrick. Really do hope you're doing well. And it would be sad if we didn't have you in here. So we always appreciate you coming in. We got Arlie coming in too, says morning. Just wanted to say I appreciate you guys. Also looking forward to maybe free agency or draft. Who would you like to see join the team? I really like Genty. I really like a lot of the defensive linemen potentially available for the Broncos at pick 20. Like both those tight ends as well. Emeka Egbuka is a really fascinating player. So we'll see how it plays out. But there's going to be a lot of different options. And for free agency, I've always been so annoyed that like you see the top 50 guys and then 30 of them are re-signed before free agency even happens. And then there's another 80 that are cut. So I typically wait until you have that first wave of teams retaining guys and teams cutting guys before I actually look at the landscape of free agency. So it always changes so much that it doesn't matter.
And this one makes sense for, speaking of players, that could hit free agency, might not, is Atlanta Falcons center Drew Dahlman as a free agent would make a great additional replacement for Wattenberg. Do you agree? Yeah, he's an improvement on Wattenberg. I don't think he'll hit free agency. Speaking to what Nick was saying, I think he'll get his deal with the Atlanta Falcons before they go to free agency. They've got too much invested in that offense to have a hole at center for what it might end up costing them. But, coming full circle, that was the Broncos pick. Drew Dahlman was the Denver Broncos 4th round pick and was taken. It was part of the trade that got Javonte Williams. When the Broncos traded up with the Falcons and moved up in the 2nd round, they sent him a 4th, and that 4th ended up being Drew Dahlman, which ironically was probably the most valuable player of the 3 involved, because Richie Grant, who the Falcons took with the 2nd round pick, was a bust. Javonte was really good. Injury has really sapped his career, and Drew Dahlman's been a 3-year starter and is now a free agent. Well, pending free agent. I don't think he hits free agency.
Yeah, for me, the hard thing I have with Dahlman is that I don't think he's a very good blocker at the point of attack necessarily. He's more of an outside zone guy, good at combo blocks. So I worry about duo with him for Denver. I think he's a better value for a team that's more wide zone. And also, is it tenable for Denver to have 5 veteran contracts on the offensive line? You got to have some cost control on the unit. So I think probably the plan for center will be Wattenberg with a soft competition with Forsythe behind him. And you're looking to draft somebody this season, day 3, that you can develop and compete with Forsythe / take over in 2026. I believe that's the plan. It's just, you already have 4 huge contracts on the offensive line. You can kind of get away with that with a rookie contract for now. But I don't see them doing that with center as well. There's got to be some cost control aspect to the room. I think
Dahlman, again, I try not to look at the Lloyd Cushenberry contract because
horrible.
that was dumb. I mean, the Titans wasted so much money. It angers me. What makes me mad is watching people making millions of dollars doing stupid stuff. And that was too much money for Lloyd Cushenberry. And that's the same group that gave Calvin Ridley like $50 million guaranteed. That was just moronic. So Is Dahlman better than Wattenberg? Probably. How expensive will he be? 7-8 million, maybe, Nick, on a new deal. And then with a multi-year deal, his cap hit will probably be like $2 or $3 million next year.
Yeah.
Coach Chris coming in, he says, good morning, guys. You both need to host this show every day. Are there any tight ends to go after in free agency? What about safety and corner? Keep up the great work. If there was anything to take from the season, it got my wife and daughter into the Broncos. That's a good one. And I've tried to manipulate my kids. They just not care. It's like, hey, Scott, can we go? Or hey, Dad, can we go to the movies? I'm like, yeah, if Chelsea wins, we can go. So wait till this game's over. Boy, they'd root their asses off for Chelsea if they got a movie out of it. Or if we had ice cream, I made them eat it out of a Braves cup. So you got to say Braves. You got to say go Braves if you're gonna get ice cream. So thank you so much for all of the support you show our show. It means a lot, Chris.
Yeah, without a doubt. Appreciate you, Chris. That's big time support and keeps the lights on here. Speaking of keeping the lights on, we better talk about the actual topic here. I know everybody's super excited for the draft and we can go all day, but news on the Broncos front. Vance Joseph interviewing today with the New York Jets opening.
Do you have an answer for this question before we move on?
Yeah, tight
ends.
The top two that I'm aware of are Gesicki and Austin Hooper. I mean, Gesicki would be nice as far as a move piece. He had some verticality. I mean, he killed the Broncos in that Cincinnati game. Granted, that was like, the Broncos might not be very good at linebacker, one of their safety spots, and nickel. I know everybody loves Jaquan McMillan. He's got some work by Scott. But those are the guys that stand out. I don't see them spending money on corner. If anything, it's going to be another cheap Levi Wallace type to add depth to the room. But I can't see them spending money at the position, really. Safety, I'm not sure about the safety free agency class
Justin
yet.
Simmons will be a free agent. So will Richie Grant, the aforementioned Richie Grant. I don't know enough about the rest of the league, Chris, to talk about who could be the really good ones yet. I haven't taken a deep dive into free agency yet, as far as value and age, et cetera, et cetera. But last year, Nick, there were a lot. Remember how the safety market just tanked?
Yeah.
Where there was like 5 or 6 veteran free agents with chops out there. It's one of the reasons why Justin Simmons waited so long to sign.
Yep. Yeah, we'll see what happens to the safety market. There's going to be options. Javon Holland from the Dolphins is out there. Morig from the Raiders, who's been solid. Budda Baker, multi-time Pro Bowler. Hufanga for the 49ers, who had that amazing rookie season and kind of fell off after that. Justin Reed from the Chiefs, emergency kicker. Justin Reed. Jeremy Chin from the Commanders. There's some options out there. I would be surprised if Denver didn't add a safety to the mix, and a linebacker is the other one as well, keeping an eye on. We'll see how it plays out, though, for those positions. But, yeah, Denver's going to look to spend a little bit of money out there. I think the only guarantee I have, I'll make a guarantee on this one, Zach Allen's going to have a new contract before the week 1 next season. As far as where Denver spends money, Zach Allen will be back. Won't speak to Benito or Sutton yet, but Allen will be back. We got Max coming in too. Says, morning, gents. I'd love a DT game record round 1. I think we get a running back day 2. Very possible. Denver's not a singular anything away from hoisting a Lombardi trophy, in my opinion. And the entirety of your interior defensive line, your top 4, are gone after 2026 as it currently stands. So that's a position that you just need to continue to toss logs on the fire. It doesn't necessarily have to be a round 1 spot, but with how talented this class is on the interior defensive line, the fact that interior defensive line is one of the 5 premium positions on a football team, I think that does add up. So somebody like Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State, maybe Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, Derek Harmon out of Oregon, all guys to keep an eye on as we are 99 days away from the draft.
I didn't realize Zach was a free agent after this year. Had just a 3-year deal. I thought he may have restructured or something and got another deal on there, but
he's a free agent after 2020, after next season, but they're going to get to him
right
before.
I would get him a 3-year extension on that, lower his cap hit to about $5 million and take him into his age 32 season. And can you eat up those void years? How does that necessarily work?
I think those stay on there no matter what. So they'll just be dead cap.
God, I hate void years.
I wish they'd get rid of them.
Part of the reason I hate them is because I don't understand them. and it's like built in. It's like automatic dead cap. I hate dead cap. I don't want to pay this guy anymore. I don't want him counting against my salary cap if he's not on the team. Yeah. And you're automatically having that in there. I hate them. I hate the void years.
Yep. News for the Broncos of Vance Joseph, going off to the Jets today and the Raiders Thursday. You also have David Shaw interviewed with the Bears. They've interviewed like 300 people. So, we'll see what happens with David Shaw there, but I would expect he's probably back in Denver with his advisory role. And you also have Chris Banjo, I believe. He's a special teams assistant on Denver. He's interviewing for the special teams opening for the 49ers. So we'll see what happens here. Vance Joseph, I think he's underrated for Denver. I don't know why people are so. I know he had the rough start and the defense kind of fell apart down the end, but you kind of had some spackling there in the back seven that was exposed against good teams.
And it's confirmation bias, Nick. When he had a rough go of it as head coach, if there's failure, you're like, see, this is what I've been waiting for. So but did he do a good job with this team? Yes, absolutely. Come on. This defense wildly exceeded expectations, and Vance Joseph did a good job, flat out.
Yep, absolutely. So obviously it'd be unfortunate if Denver lost Vance Joseph. It's not just losing Vance Joseph too. It would be upheaval of your defensive staff, right? He's going to bring guys with him and maybe even offensive staff. So there'd be a lot of transition on Denver if Vance Joseph did leave. Granted, you do have some in-house potential replacements. I think if Vance Joseph did leave, you'd see Jim Leonard get tapped on the shoulder as the defensive coordinator, but I would not rule out Dennis Allen. Obviously, he was the defensive coordinator for Sean Payton there for a number of years in the Saints when they had some pretty darn good defenses and was recently fired. So coming back to Denver, former defensive coordinator under John Fox, I believe, when he was out here over a decade ago. But yeah, those are the two names I think that stand out as far as potential replacements if Vance Joseph left. That said, Scott, I think given Vance Joseph's already failed once as a head coach, granted not entirely his fault, only 2 years, and burdened with Case Keenum as his answer at quarterback, and also the fact that there's obviously a bias towards offensive coaches in the league just because of the stability with that. I don't see Vance Joseph being hired away. Now, granted, if he has another top 5 EPA DVOA defense next season, I think we're there. But right now, guys like Aaron Glenn is ahead of him on the pecking order with what he's done with Detroit this season, despite all the injuries, and everybody's going to want a little bit of that Dan Campbell sauce. I think he's ahead of him. Ben Johnson is ahead of him. And just, again, the bias towards offensive coaches right now as well. So I don't see Vance Joseph leaving this cycle, which is both good and bad. We'll see. Obviously, it'd be nice to get those compensatory picks for him, but I also like the stability entering year 2 by keeping VJ, who is consistently underrated and over scrutinized, I believe, by a lot of Broncos country.
No, I agree with basically everything you just said. 6 weeks into the season, we said that Vance Joseph will be getting interviews for head coaching jobs. That's where we're at. And I agree with you. I think he's probably a year away for all of the reasons that you mentioned. Being a head coach prior on the defensive side of the ball, he's going to need an extra year to prove that, an extra year of excellence at his chosen craft. Whereas offensive, if you have one flash of the pan season and you've never been a head coach and you're between 30 and 40, you'll get a head coaching, pretty good chance you get a head coaching job when 6 or 7 open up every year.
Yeah. So we'll see. Again, I think defensive coach, especially ones who have failed previously. We can call it a failure. It's not entirely his fault. Again, if you don't have a quarterback, good luck in the NFL. But I think you have to prove it multiple times if you are a defensive coach, a former failed defensive coach. And not to be that guy, but also just, there's inherent bias in the league. I think we have the data. It is harder for a minority coach to get that second chance as well. So we'll see how it plays out with Vance Joseph. I do believe, though, he will be back next season, and that's a good thing. And hopefully he continues to get another opportunity going forward, because that would mean good things for the Broncos next season and just continue to build a culture. But he did a phenomenal job with this defense. We talked about it all year. The Broncos disproportionately spent on the premium resources on the offensive side of the ball over the last 2 years at the expense of the defense. And I feel like he's very much maximized the pieces that he had there. I mean, Brandon Jones, solid mid-level free agent, played above expectations. Finding Jaquan McMillan, Allen is vastly above expectation, developing Cooper and Benito, hiding, let's call it what it is, hiding the linebackers this season as much as they did. I mean, 63 sacks on the whole. I mean, they stand up. The only true, premium investment on that side of the ball was Patrick Surtain, and he squeezed out, and the collective was better than the individual pieces. So
Zach Allen got some money.
He did, but I still think he was only like the 10th or 15th highest paid interior defensive lineman.
That was still a premium investment.
Okay.
I mean, even saying top 10, I mean, when he got it, if we're talking, free agency, what was his total deal? 3 years, $46 million. That's not nothing.
No. It's okay. We can all, I had premium even like a slightly higher, but that's fine. Cause once you hit free agency, there's that surplus tax. You don't get that benefit as well. So there's always a little bit of excess if you sign a guy from another team. It seems like for the market, but Vance Joseph's done a phenomenal.
You look after that, and Benito was in the 60s,
64 or 63.
Cooper was a day 3 pick,
7th rounder.
Yeah, DJ Jones was decent money, but not crazy.
Yeah,
scrap heap linebackers. Average market value for Brandon Jones, and then cornerback day 2 isn't necessarily a huge investment at the cornerback position.
No, and so also just some savvy moves this offseason as well. Shout out to George Payton, but also I'm sure Vance Joseph plays a part in it too. Malcolm Roach, your ROI on that one was phenomenal. And John Franklin Myers, you give up a 5th round pick to bring in a 28, 29-year-old guy who's been a heavy-handed edge that's a good fit as a 4-eye in your scheme. Now, granted, against the mauling giant bodies of the Bills, it didn't work out necessarily. But, I mean, overall, he's done a phenomenal job. So I know that a lot of Broncos country are rubbing their hands to get those compensatory picks and to move on from Vance Joseph. And I have people, I see the tweets, people really degrading Vance Joseph, but I think he did. I mean, there's a reason he's getting the interviews for a second-time guy. He's 53 years old, 51 years old. But he's going to have 52. Take the average there, Nick.
Put it this way. If he was fired, he'd, excuse me.
Yep.
He'd be at the top of the list of interviews for defensive coordinator openings.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what happens with Vance Joseph. I expect him back. I think we're probably a year off of top 10 defense for him. And that'd be good for Denver. Just stability on the coaching staff, because that's one thing I think we keep coming back to this season. I still think the talent on the roster is a ways away. You probably had 2 or 3 wins added to this team just straight up from coaching. Maybe even more, because it's the identification as well and the toughness and the culture. But you outperformed I believe the talent on paper, and that speaks to coaching on both sides of the ball.
So that's one of the things that frustrates me about the 6-11 prediction. I get so much into looking at personnel and holes in personnel. And I was the biggest advocate for trading a 1st-round draft pick for Sean Payton on MHH that I forget just how much incompetency there is at the coaching position and how much that matters. That, it probably is worth 3 wins at least. If you said 6, it should have been at least 9 based on 3 wins. Forget the personnel.
Yeah.
And special teams mattered too. It was all 3 phases look good. And that's why all 3 phases people are being interviewed, including, Davis Mills is getting some discussions. Davis Webb getting some discussions outside of Broncos country too.
I mean, keep an eye. Maybe Joe Lombardi is elevated to assistant head coach, offensive pass game coordinator, and Webb is the offensive coordinator. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, it's going to be a fun offseason, and Denver's in a good spot. Again, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the quarterback position, more or less. After that, the trenches. But Denver has a guy at quarterback. To what degree do they have a guy? Is it like in all caps, a guy? We'll find out. It's way too early to say, but the first season in the books looks good. Denver's in a good spot, and have to trust the building blocks are here for a stable ascending team. And that's just It's been so long since we've never been able to say that since we've been doing the show, Scott. It's been a decade. So really good spot for the Broncos. And we'll see what happens. But appreciate everyone. We're going to get on out of here. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott's at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, we're over at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. As that ticker says there underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. That's the number one place you can find us. Shout out to all our star givers. Michael Ronquillo a couple times, of course. Miguel Santa-Steven. Our guy Troy Brewer coming in here. Good to see you, Troy. Rob Bucksbaum giving us the draft content here that we wanted to go with. David Youngkin, of course. We got Arlie. Good to see you. Appreciate you so much. Patrick, our coffee guy. Good to see you. Coach Chris with the big time super chat there. $50. Thank you so much, Coach. As far as tight ends go, again, I want to answer that. I wouldn't be against Denver signing a high floor guy, kind of like Austin Hooper, where you just add solid capability to the room, where it's like, okay, let's say the draft doesn't fall to you a certain way and you don't end up going with a guy in the first 100 picks. The room isn't tanked then. It's that kind of thing. But we'll see what tight ends look like. I mean, you look at, it's just like everybody wants a tight end, but then when you go to Pro Football Focus or anywhere else and look at the top tight ends, it falls off a freaking cliff. Like there's just like only 5 guys that you're even happy about in the entire league. So would it be nice to have one that's similar to linebacker? Yes, of course. But you don't have to have that guy. And you just need some solidness. So
Matt Ryan made a lot of guys a lot of money, and Austin Hooper is one of those guys.
Yeah, he's a fine tight end too. Yeah. But Scott, the tight ends in the NFL, you can say that about 90% of the starters.
He's on 5 teams in 6 years.
Yeah.
4 teams in the last 4. He's all right.
Yep. Most of them are just all right. But appreciate everyone coming in here. We're going to get on here. Shout out to everybody again. Thanks, Michael, for coming in there at the end. We will see you guys again. I will see you again next Monday. Scott will be out. All good. We'll see you next time. Enjoy a good weekend of football as well. We got Saturday, Sunday, and Monday's the championship game on a 3-day weekend. Happy MLK Day. So have a great one, everyone. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.